Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast, which is dedicated to nonprofit leaders who are passionate about making a difference. I'm your host, Haley Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on a journey of growth, inspiration, and transformation. At Lead with Heart, we believe that leading with heart means embracing empathy, compassion, and authenticity in every aspect of our work. It's about putting people first, fostering genuine connections, and creating a positive impact that goes beyond numbers and metrics. In the nonprofit world, it can often feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The challenges are immense and the road can be lonely. But here, you're not alone. This podcast is a community where we support each other, share our stories, and learn together. Each episode will dive into personal and professional development topics tailored specifically for nonprofit leaders. From innovative fundraising strategies and effective team management to self-care practices and leadership insights, we're here to provide you with practical strategies that you can apply to your life and work. My goal is to empower you, elevate your leadership, and engage your heart in all that you do. I want to help you navigate the unique challenges of the nonprofit sector with confidence and resilience, so you can continue to create meaningful change in the world. So whether you're driving to a meeting, taking a break, or winding down for the day, tune in and join us on this journey. Together we'll discover what it truly means to lead with heart. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lead with Heart podcast. This is your host, Haley Cooper, and today I have an incredible guest who's here to help nonprofit leaders and small business owners navigate the complex world of HR with heart and expertise. Meet Dr. Tiffany Slater, the CEO and founder of HR Tailormade. Tiffany is a trailblazing entrepreneur who built her business from the ground up, offering HR solutions that not only ensure compliance, but also foster thriving workplace cultures. Well, welcome to the podcast, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me, Haley.
Well, I would love to know your journey as an entrepreneur is truly inspiring. Can you share how HR Tailormade came to be and what made you focus on helping nonprofit and small businesses?
Yeah. So the way that HR Tailormade came to be was probably very similar to what a lot of women right now are experiencing. It's frustration in the workplace and not enough time to really spend at home and take care of ourselves and spend with our family. So I was frustrated and I was no longer happy in a career that I spent years building. I've been in HR for almost 30 years, and I found that I was just at a point that it no longer brought me joy, and I had to go. There was no other option for me. So I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I needed to use my HR skills because that was all that I had, essentially. And so I decided to start an HR consulting company, not knowing what the heck that meant, and really having to do the research and the homework to figure out what entrepreneurship looked like for me and how I could best serve my own needs while also developing this big, scary thing, which turned out to be HR Tailormade.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that story. And I appreciate you sharing. Can you talk a little bit more about, I think at least a lot of nonprofits I've worked for
Mhm.
have not had HR, or they've outsourced HR, or they're just getting to the size where they're like, oh crap, they have to hire HR. So can you talk a little bit more about what human resources is and what it means and some of the programs you offer?
Yeah. HR is so many things. And I think the downside of it sometimes is it means something different in every organization. But I would say, as a whole, what it should mean is HR should be the body of work in an organization that has the primary focus of ensuring the consistency in the culture and the well being of the people. To me, that is what is most important. And oftentimes, when we think about human resources, we think about the police of the organization, which to me, I reject that. And we don't believe that in HR Tailormade. We are not the police. We are, however, the people who will come in to say, does this particular behavior or does this particular policy align with your values, the vision, or the culture that you hope to create? So that's the way that we approach our work. We think about things from the perspective of, how would I feel if someone told me that I was on probation for the first 90 days? Well, we don't use the word probation. We say your orientation period or your introductory period. It sounds really negative to think of probation because that is tied to jail and incarceration, right?
Yeah.
So we try really hard to reject those narratives that typically come along with the traditional way of doing HR. Primary for us is the health and success of the team members and therefore the overall organization.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think, yeah, like you said, probation, it's like you just started a job and already you're in trouble. You're like, I didn't even show myself yet. So that totally makes sense. And I love that you're changing the narrative around that to be more supportive of the well-being of all the employees and just the culture of the organization. And I always love to ask this question because every single person on this podcast has a different answer to what culture is. So what does culture mean to you and how do you go about cultivating that within an organization?
Yeah. Culture to me is very difficult to define, but the best way for me is, how do you want people to feel when they come to work inside of your organization? What do you want them to experience? And how do you want them to be treated? And how do you want them to behave? All of those things, the combination of those, create the culture and the norms that go along with the work that happens in the organization. So, for example, what do you expect people to do if they have a question at 9 o'clock at night? Is it the norm for people to call, send a text, or email? That's a part of the culture. Do we schedule meetings on Fridays after 12 o'clock? That is a part of the culture. Do we check on people when they are home sick after 2 days? Is it normal for us to send flowers, for someone to call, or for someone to check on you on your first day back at work? That is a part of the culture. Some of the other things that are directly aligned with the work that we do in HR, is it a part of our culture to give honest feedback? Do we have established protocols for providing feedback? Is it normal for team members to give feedback to their leaders? Is it well received? How do managers respond to it? So all of those things really do contribute to establishing the culture. How does it feel inside of this place that I work? As it relates to the coworkers that I work with, how does it feel? Do we laugh? Do we joke? Or are we serious all the time? Does everybody have on headphones because nobody wants to hear anybody else talking? What does it feel like? That is the best way. There's obviously a Webster dictionary definition of culture, but the simple way of putting it is, how does it feel to be a part of this organization?
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's the Maya Angelou quote, like people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel,
Yeah.
right? And people leave organizations because they feel like they're not included or they don't belong or like they don't feel connected to the people that they're working with. So I think it's
Yeah.
really important what you said is like focusing on creating that environment where everyone feels safe and
Mhm.
included and like they belong.
Yeah. And then ensuring that all of these things that we say that we want people to feel and experience, that we actually have protocols around ensuring that it happens.
You talked about feedback, and I think sometimes feedback can be when someone's exiting, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is how you actually felt. But I think it has to be a regular part of the conversation so that people feel like they want to be a part of the organization. So when we talk about upward feedback and it can fall flat where you're like, yes, I want feedback, and then it doesn't go anywhere, or you don't tell people how it's going to be utilized within an organization. So how do you set up systems where there is that constant feedback loop?
Yeah. One of the ways that we do it is through the performance feedback process. And typically, when we are designing a performance feedback form, we call it a touch base form. And this is something that our clients use on a regular basis for just those quick hit conversations where they just want to know how the employee is doing, what they're working on. And they also want to know, how am I doing as a leader? What can I do to better support you? So the way that we establish the touchback process, we ensure that the team member is the one who completes that form. Really quick document that they share with their leader. The leader writes any comments on it if they have any, and then they have a quick conversation about it so that any questions that arise as a result of reviewing the document, they can be discussed at that moment. But we ensure that it's an ongoing conversation. Feedback goes both ways. Our job as a leader is to ensure the success of our team members. And part of that means that we have to remove obstacles for them. But we can't remove obstacles if we don't know what they are. So that conversation has to be back and forth and a two-way street all the time. So that's one of the ways that we ensure that constant feedback loop.
Yeah. And I think that also starts with, which you've created like a checklist for onboarding, right? And like we talked about in those first 90 days, those are critical for both the organization and someone that is entering an organization. And so can you talk a little bit more about or walk us through why onboarding is so critical and how leaders can use this checklist to set new employees up for success?
Onboarding is essential. It's the way that we start the relationship with our new team member. And for me, onboarding begins at the moment that the person says, yes, I take the job. I'll accept the position. And so everything we do from that point forward, up until the point where that person is fully equipped to do the job successfully, that's all a part of the onboarding process. It's important that we have a really well structured onboarding process for a couple of reasons. One, we don't want to forget anything. Two, we want to ensure that we are consistent with the information that we are sharing with people. And three, we want to make sure that we have done everything that we can at the onset of the relationship to ensure that the person can be successful. It's got to be frustrating for people when they start in an organization with no training and they're just thrown to the wolves and we are hoping for the best. And it happens so often, not just in small organizations, not just in nonprofits, but there are large organizations that don't have a formal onboarding process. So we've got to get better in that regard and understand that it's important for the success of our mission that we have people on our team who understand what the mission is, understand our values, and are actually equipped to carry out the work that we've hired them to do.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs. Helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. Yes, I think that is so important. I've been handed an Excel spreadsheet of donors and an employee handbook and told to go fly, go figure it out. And luckily, I have that kind of brain work, but it does create that sense of, okay, I'm not really supported here. Like I have to do it on my own. And having that sense of onboarding is just such an important, I mean, it's important for anything, right? Whether you're on a board or you're hiring any new employee, that part is essential.
Yeah, and the onboarding process is really key to acclimating that person to the organization. That's your opportunity to say, here's who we are, and here's how you contribute to what we do. Hence the reason your work is so important to us. No better way to show a person what they mean to the organization than to align their work to the mission and the goals of the organization.
So who should be included in this onboarding process? Does it depend on the role? And what does that look like in a little bit more detail?
Yeah. So anyone that touches that person's work, if you will, or that is impacted by that person's work should be included in the onboarding process. Even if it's as simple as you stopping by to make sure that person is introduced to this particular individual. Onboarding is we like to create checklists, and we break the checklist down by day, by week, by month, so that we have a clear path forward on what's going to happen for this particular person. That doesn't mean that you have to follow it verbatim. It doesn't mean that you have to stick to it and what's in here for this week, we got to get it done for this week. You can be flexible with it. The point is that you have a list of things that you need to do to help this person to be successful. So one of the best ways to create your checklist or your training plan for this person is to look at their job description and look at every major thing that they are responsible for and determine what do they need or who do they need to know to be successful or to get this particular thing done. All of those components should be a part of the onboarding process. Mm-hmm. So, for example, one of my roles, if you will, let's say, is to plan a retreat every year. What do I need to do? Well, I need access to everyone's calendar so that I can understand availability. I need to have access to the budget. I need to understand how to read the budget. I also need a credit card. I need access to the event planner. I need to meet the people who are going to be presenting at the retreat. So all of those things need to be a part of my onboarding process so that I can actually do the work that you've asked me to do.
That's so good. And when it comes to HR, like when is it time for an organization to hire in-house versus hire a consultant who can then provide those services?
Yeah. So, Haley, I believe you can have a consultant at any point and in all ways, right? Because if you think about it, well, I can speak for HR Tailormade. We're a team. So anyone who decides to have HR Tailormade as their outsourced HR department, you get all of us as opposed to hiring one person who has perhaps one set of skills or has been in HR for 10 to 20 years. Well, you've got several of us that can support the work for our clients at HR Tailormade. But I will say any organization that has over 75 employees, they should probably have an HR person. And it's always okay to outsource some portions of the work because one HR person a lot of times won't be enough and they won't have the capacity to get all of the things done all the time.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. To be the most efficient, we have to be able to outsource some of those key responsibilities that, aren't necessarily, we can do them, but we'd better spend our time doing other things and prioritizing those. I think difficult conversations are obviously inevitable in any workplace. And I have a lot of thoughts on this topic that we've talked about on this podcast. But what are your top strategies for approaching these discussions with empathy while maintaining professionalism?
Well, I think any conversation should be handled with empathy and professionalism. I think the best way to do that is to approach every conversation believing the best in everyone. And that is hard sometimes. I will fully acknowledge that. Being an HR person, I have seen some of the worst things that people could do. And we have to remember that everyone is human. We never know what side of the bed an individual wakes up on any given day of the week. But we still would all appreciate being spoken to or treated as though we had the best intention. So I believe that we should afford that to others as well. That also means that we should assume that people want to do better. I know that there are some instances where that is not the case, but we have to approach conversations from that perspective. So if there is a concern that we have with someone, we need to approach it from the perspective of this person wants to get better. I need to share with them my concerns. I need to share with them what the expectation is. When we do that, we are automatically setting ourselves up to be able to say, I've done the best that I can do. I've provided this person with all of the tools that I believe are helpful to ensure a person's success. And when we get to a point where there's an individual that we've tried, we've provided them with training, we've given them feedback, and it's still not enough, in my opinion, it is at that point when we can say, this person has terminated themselves because I've done everything. What else is there for me to do? It's not our job to do the work for people. It is our job to give them the tools that they need to be successful.
That is so good. And I totally agree with that. And I think it goes, like you said, trying to understand them and go along with empathy instead of with a certain agenda or you did something wrong. But being mindful that it's not necessarily about the person, it's about the behavior.
Yes.
They're exemplifying. And I love that you said it's about holding them to the expectations of the organization. Mm-hmm. This is how we want to operate. This is our culture. And this is how this fits in. And I think I had someone on my podcast, Stephanie Cortillier, who talked about appreciative inquiry. So asking the right questions to have that generative future. So I had a boss come to me and be like, Haley, you're late for every meeting. It's so disrespectful. Instead, he should have asked me, Haley, why are you late for every meeting? And what is going on? Because I know that you care about this organization. I know that you care about being a leader. And for me, it was because I had a kid and there was no way I could make it at 8 a.m. for a meeting first thing on a Monday. But it was like having those difficult conversations, but it's flipping the script of, I know how much you care about this organization. I know how much you care. What is going on? But instead of just coming in and be like, you're so disrespectful. But yeah, it's the whole thing. Yes, I love what you said. And I also think building an inclusive work environment is obviously a priority for many leaders today, if not all. What steps can small organizations truly take to create a workplace that values diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging?
I can't speak enough about this, specifically in the nonprofit space, where the work typically supports people who are in a minority group of some sort. Inside of our organizations, the people that are actually delivering the services are typically diverse as well. We have to make sure that their voice is heard, that they know that they're valued, that we create systems that promote belonging. For example, involve people in deciding what types of appreciation events that you're going to have, or how are we going to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day? Do we celebrate Christmas, or is it winter break? So literally little things like that. Well, I say little, but they're big to so many people. I say little because I think it is a small tweak for us to make. And I say this from the perspective of a Christian. I'm a Christian. And because I value the voices of so many people, I think it's important that we recognize that we are not an organization or a country that is monolithic, right? And so if we know that we want to ensure that the people that are on our team know that we care about them, they know that we value them, we have to involve them in creating the space in which we all have to operate so that they too feel seen, heard, valued, and as a part of the conversations, a part of the decisions that are being made, and a part of the policies that are developed. It's really important for organizational leaders to see the value in creating a space for everyone.
Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today. Yes, that is so good. So does this look like a committee, or how do you, I've seen organizations put together committees that focus on a specific area. Is it hiring a chief people officer or chief diversity officer, which I've seen a lot of big corporate organizations do? What does it look like to actually allow people to have that voice?
Yeah, that's a great question, Hallie. And you probably hear that a lot. One of the mistakes that I believe that a lot of organizations did coming out of COVID or on the heels of George Floyd and in hiring all of these diversity, equity, inclusion people, it's a great gesture. But if you aren't truly ready to do your own personal individual work, it's not going to matter. we have to hire people on our team who value diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And we can't assume that because they want to come and work in our organization, that they actually value it. So when we are hiring for the positions, we have to ask very direct and poignant questions that allow us to really see behind the curtain and really get a feel for, will this person be a good fit for our culture? Because we're trying to build an organization that is the Rainbow Coalition, but every person is represented or every religion is valued and all of the things that make us different. If we want an organization that is reflective of that, when we're interviewing people, we need to dig deep. We need to look at social media. We need to understand the different types of organizations that they belong to, why they belong to those organizations. We need to be real nosy. And I'm being really honest because without doing our homework on a personal level, we're never going to get to the point where diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and or justice is a part of our organization and a part of the culture that is actually there in a meaningful way. We can have these titles, we can have trainings, but if we're not ready to actually make the changes internally, it's not going to mean anything.
Yeah. So if an organization is listening to this and they're like, okay, where do we start? Like, how do we start building that internally? Not just, I'm a grant writer, I'm a fundraiser. And a lot of times they just write it in the box because they have to get funding, but there's not that internal work. And it's just like a checklist, like you said. So what's like a starting place for an organization to start internally changing that narrative and that culture?
Yeah. So first, like I said, we have to make sure that we have the right people in the right seats on the bus. 2, we've got to make sure that our mission and values are all aligned. And we have to create processes and protocols inside of our organization that ensure that our values demonstrated, that our mission is actually evident. I can't say if a committee is the right thing. It may be the right thing in the right organization, but that's not always the answer. There are some organizations that have to go deep quicker. And there are some organizations that don't need to go deep because they've done a great job of hiring people who are a good cultural fit. So every organization is different. And I will have to say that DEI is not my specialization. Culture is absolutely an area where we thrive as a team, supporting organizations to develop the culture that helps them to be successful. With that, it's important that you start with your mission and values, because those are the two things that help to set the course for the organization. Once we have the values, we want to make sure that it is infused in everything that we do and utilize the team to say, hey, how does this value show up for you? Or what does this value look like for you? If you are exemplifying this value as it relates to a coworker, what does it look like? Or if you're exemplifying this value as it relates to a customer, what does it look like? So start there. Operationalize your values.
Ooh, that's so good. And you mentioned this idea of culture fit. So I just had someone on the podcast a few weeks ago, Dr. Reggie Thomas, and we talked about this idea of culture fit versus culture add, because they've seen different schools of thought of, if you're trying to hire for culture fit, it means you're trying to hire for people that are just like you, which I know there's different schools of thought. So I would love your idea on this. And when you're trying to add for culture add, it's maybe someone who has a diverse perspective or experience from you. So what do you mean when you're saying culture fit?
Yes, thank you for asking and seeking clarification. Culture fit to me is a person who can make us better. And in terms of our values, they are aligned with our values. So if I say that our values are collaboration, diversity, results, and joy, those values resonate with that person. It doesn't mean that person is a Christian like me. It doesn't mean that person is socioeconomically on the same level as I am. It doesn't mean that person has a PhD. That person can have a high school diploma. So to me, it just means that the values that we hold true resonates with that person. It also means that person is not rude when everybody else in the organization is respectful. So it's little things like that. Is that person going to come into our organization and upset the balance of peace? Or are they going to contribute and enhance the way that we operate inside of our ecosystem?
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing for even when you're interviewing. It should be a two-sided conversation. And I think also people need to be clear on their values and what they value, and then how that would align in a certain workplace, because you can decide that maybe their values aren't a match for you. And instead of entering an organization and then you get frustrated or resentful because you hold different things, I think it can play on both sides. And I think when it comes to that, employee retention is obviously a hot topic. And there's a social impact report released recently where I think it was some high percentage of nonprofit professionals are looking to leave or swap careers. And that is just a sad fact, because we need nonprofits and we need nonprofit employees. So what are some keys to keeping top talent engaged and committed to an organization long term?
Honestly, from what I've seen with nonprofit organizations, I believe the main thing that keeps people in this cycle of turnover, if you will, is burnout. Because nonprofits are strapped for cash in many instances, the workload is so heavy that individuals don't have the space to take care of themselves in the midst of doing very heavy work.
Yeah.
So that is what I truly believe is the number one reason for people wanting to leave the nonprofit space. If we were able to pump more resources into nonprofits and not expecting them to operate on a shoestring budget to do this amazing work, I think the more people would stay in nonprofits. I believe that people want to stay, but physically, emotionally, and financially, in a lot of cases, it's just not what's best for them.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And, when you think of HR, you think of like benefits and like things like that. What are you're talking about well-being of the people. What are some programs that nonprofits, whether large or small, free or of cost, that they can start to take care of the well-being of the people they're serving? I've seen family members or friends who have reliving trauma through the work that they're doing, and they don't have a place to outsource it. And from this burnout, now at my age, they're experiencing physical symptoms that they shouldn't be experiencing because they have nowhere to let it out, or they have nowhere to feel comfortable to share. And I think it goes beyond, there's so many different aspects of well-being, like mental, emotional, physical. But what are some strategies you have for nonprofits to start investing in the well-being because in the long run, it is cheaper than having to continue to hire?
I think the first strategy is to recognize that, first of all, the importance of investing in wellness. Second of all, understanding that it will cost you more in the long run if you don't invest in staff wellness. And that comes in the form of turnover and having to recruit for the position and doing the interviewing process, all of the things that go along with finding a new person, the training and the time to get them up to speed, and in the interim, who's going to do the work. So it's very expensive to replace a person. The other piece of that is it's really expensive to have people on staff who are holding a position that they're not able to fulfill because they're burned out. Their mind is not working as effectively as it should because they're exhausted and they're emotionally drained. So here you have a person who is at work, but mentally and emotionally have perhaps quit. And so they're not effective. They're not doing anything. So some of the things that I think would be beneficial for nonprofits to do is create partnerships with other organizations that perhaps provide counseling or therapy. So many cities offer free therapy programs. See if you can partner with some of them to provide services to your team. BetterHelp, and I hate to advertise another company, but you see their advertisements all the time on TV, and it's therapy that the organization can pay for. Even if you can't pay for these things, create a list of resources for your people so they don't have to go out and do the legwork themselves. I think we often get to a point where we feel as though we can't help because we can't pay for it. But if we make a list of the resources that are available to people, there are a lot of very resourceful people who will find a way to get what they need on their own. Just give them a little bit of a push by giving them a list of resources. Gym memberships, right? That's another one. Have a yoga instructor come in once a week, do yoga together. Encourage people to work remotely once or twice or 3 times a week, whatever works for you. But we've got to figure out ways to allow people the space to breathe, the space to take a pause. We do very hard work in the nonprofit space. Hard. It's a heavy lift because every day the conversation revolves around either servicing someone else or financing the work that we're doing to service someone else. Those are the two main conversations. So as leaders, we need to try to flip the script sometimes and think about, how am I going to find the resources to service my team so that they can continue to execute on the mission?
Ooh, that is so good. I love it. Well, if people want to find you, where can they find you? We'll obviously link to it all in the show notes, but tell us where people can connect with you.
Yeah, please go to our website at hrtailormade.com.
Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for this conversation. It has brought joy to my day, and I know it'll bring joy to our listeners. I just really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.